Hey y'all, I'm using one of the tangles that Donnie gave me, but that is not what this is about. I'm going to teach you a term, and you may have heard of it, but you may not have. The term is Schadenfreude. It's a German word. This is what it looks like. I wrote it down. Schadenfreude. Now, what does that mean? If you've never heard of it, what does it mean? It's a fancy way to say you might take some pleasure from someone else's misfortune, misery, suffering, whatever. And I think there's good Schadenfreude and bad Schadenfreude. I think the bad kind is where, like, you see innocent people suffering, like, the Palestinians in Gaza or something, and you just take pleasure from it. You take pleasure from watching, like, snuff videos or something. Like, that's really not good. Okay? And you're a bully that's making somebody suffer and cry, and you're taking pleasure in that. That's not good. But I think, on the other hand, if you're somebody who's been victimized and the person that hurt you, if you see them trip and fall in a mud puddle and embarrass themselves in front of someone they're trying to impress, and you get a little pleasure out of that, I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. It's human nature, honestly. And when you see somebody who wronged you get a little bit of crap themselves, it can feel kind of good to be like, finally, they're getting some of the crap that I think they deserve. And maybe they don't. But, if you delivered that misfortune to them, it might feel even a little bit better. Because, like, as an example, I don't find any pleasure in it when my dad gets so sick that he's hospitalized. Even though he's my abuser, I don't enjoy that. But if he's eating and he spills some food on himself, or if he's calling for help and it takes me a minute to get there and it's not an emergency, or he casually remarks that it sucks that he can't do what he used to do, there's a part of me that goes, okay, whatever. Because that was his reaction to my pain when I was a kid. So, like, when he gets a little embarrassed, and today he admitted to my mom and sister that he feels kind of guilty about how much help he needs. Not to me, of course, but to them. But to hear him say the words, I got this little sparkle inside of me that went, at last. He finally feels the guilt he laid on me my whole life. And that's not bad. That's not a bad thing, because it's not like I'm laying on things on him to make him feel guilty. I'm not saying you have to feel guilty. He came up with it all on his own. But if I were taking pleasure in him getting so sick he was hospitalized, that would be something a bit bad and sinister. But when I was in high school, one of my bullies, a seagull, crapped on her while she was eating lunch. And I laughed so hard I had to run and hide in the restroom so she wouldn't hear me or see me. But it's like, finally, someone else getting the shit I've been getting. But like I said, if you're deriving pleasure from watching videos of, like, people or animals being mutilated and suffering, people that never did anything to you, people that are helpless to even fight back against what's happening to them. If you're taking pleasure from those kind of videos, that's not good. And you should probably talk to someone about it. But if someone who's hurt you gets a bit of humiliated, they trip and fall, they scrape their knee, they bruise their elbow, whatever, they spill their food on their brand new clothes, that's not a bad thing to be like, it's okay. It's okay. But Schadenfreude is a thing. And that's what it means, Someone you don't like has something happen to them and you're just like, okay. And then you might pretend to be sad for them, but inside you're like, yeah, you go ahead and eat up that crap. Okay? It's okay to feel that way. As long as you're not deriving pleasure from the suffering of innocent people, and as long as it's not like a suffering that is like permanent, like they have cancer or they're dying or something, that would be a bit cruel. But like I said, a little misfortune, laugh it up. It's okay.